24-year-old Antonio Drayton was a smooth-talking ladies' man, tearing up the North Florida club scene.
He definitely is what we would consider a player.
42-year-old Cassandra Kimbrough was a sultry older woman who caught and kept Antonio's attention in a way no one else could.
He was feeding off of her energy and everything that she had to offer.
But sparks from their white-hot romance would ignite deadly consequences.
They found a human body.
The only part of her that wasn't charred was right in the middle of her face.
Now get a front row seat for this shocking story of jealousy and betrayal. And learn how the search for the killer not only led police down a twisted path of sex and scandal, but left everyone wondering whether this was a heated crime of passion or a carefully planned and cold-blooded conspiracy.
She knew exactly what she was getting into, and she did it anyway.
Gainesville, Florida. It was the early morning hours of December 30th, 2010. On County Road 225, a mother and daughter were driving through a wooded stretch just north of town. But as they rounded a bend, the night sky suddenly lit up with the orange glow of flames.
They called into the fire department and said, "There's a brush fire on the side of the road out here. Somebody needs to come out."
Firefighters rushed to the scene and doused the flames just short of the tree line. But when the smoke cleared, they made a shocking discovery.
They found a human body.
Their immediate response is to back out, get everybody out of that area, and call law enforcement.
Sheriff's detectives soon arrived to take a closer look at the charred corpse.
About 90% of the body was burnt. We couldn't make any positive identification.
But the victim's remains did reveal one identifying detail to investigators.
You could tell from the size of the body, it looked like a young black female.
The woman's ID may have been a mystery, but a familiar smell hovering over the scene told police this fire, and most likely the woman's death, was no accident.
You could smell the distinct odor of gasoline.
It was evident right away that there was foul play and that this was a homicide.
But who was this girl? And who had left her body to burn on the side of a deserted road? The answers to these questions would reveal a crime of passion so dark and devious that it would bring this unassuming community to its knees and expose a pair of perpetrators whose obsession, jealousy, and rage knew no bounds.
People were shocked. Oh my God, what happened? Who would do something so awful?
Gainesville, Florida. Nestled in the north-central part of the state, Gainesville is home to the University of Florida. Gainesville was also home to 22-year-old Antonio Drayton. Born in 1986, Antonio Drayton's childhood was turbulent. His early years were a revolving door of foster care and orphanage facilities. And Antonio grew up yearning for the unconditional affection and stability that a childhood without parents had denied him. But despite a rough start in life, Antonio always made the best of things.
He had a good spirit, though, you know what I'm saying? He was a loving, caring person.
Once he became a teenager, Antonio lucked into a foster family that struck the right balance of discipline and love, along with a healthy dose of the Holy Spirit.
Church is all we knew. Growing up in the church, going to church 24/7.
A stable church-going foster home helped Antonio do well in school and become a loyal contributing member of the household.
He was a loving, caring brother, and when I asked him to do, he'll do it. I mean, he always kept a good head on the shoulders, you know what I'm saying?
But as Antonio grew closer to manhood, school, friends, and family ties became no match for his powerful teenage libido.
He had a lot of charisma. I think he attracted a lot of women.
Growing up, the only trouble he got into was with trouble with females.
To his foster family's dismay, higher education and church activity took a back seat to chasing women. By the time he left high school and moved out of his foster home, Antonio had established a reputation as a player. He became a fixture of the local club scene, where he could be found most nights working his charms on any number of attractive and spellbound young women.
He was a party guy. He liked to have fun. He had a reputation of a ladies' man. He was somebody who took center stage.
He loved all women, and they loved him back, and for good reason. He was smooth, suave, and charismatic.
He was well-liked. He was just kind of a player.
But Antonio's playboy lifestyle wasn't cheap, and he supported his rousing late nights with long days working in a warehouse. And it was on the job, not the club, where Antonio finally met a woman who would not only make him pump the brakes on his womanizing ways, but change his life in a manner no one could have imagined. 42-year-old receptionist Cassandra Kimbrough. Cassandra was raised by a hardworking single mom. Pretty and popular, she started dating early. By the time she was in her 20s, she became a single mom herself. Cassandra continued dating while raising her children. Relationship followed relationship, some good, some bad, but none that lasted. She loved her kids and worked hard to support them. But as Cassandra moved past 40, she wished she'd been luckier in love and had enjoyed more stability in her personal life. It seemed that every man she became involved with was destined to leave her in the lurch. The harder she clung, the more painful the loss, especially with kids in the mix.
You know, being a single mother, you can kind of get emotional.
Being a single mom left Cassandra no time to daydream about Mr. Right.
She was a quiet woman. She had 2 part-time jobs. She had children, and her mom helped out with daycare and watching over the kids.
Prince Charming wasn't coming. All Cassandra wanted now was a man who could appreciate her for who she was and take the love she had to give. But even that seemed like a long shot. But Cassandra was still looking. And when a handsome young employee began working at the warehouse where she was a receptionist, she couldn't take her eyes off him.
Cassandra was attracted to Tony for some of the same reasons younger girls were attracted to him.
For Antonio, an older woman's interest was nothing new. But as they flirted in the workplace together, he began to feel that there was real chemistry between them. Cassandra's maturity impressed Antonio. She was always well-dressed and poised, and wasn't flighty and superficial like the girls at the club. And as they got to know each other, Cassandra discovered a sweet and kind side to the young player who'd caught her eye.
He showed interest in her. He was a good-looking guy. He presented himself very well, and she's somebody that she wanted to be with.
Cassandra surprised herself by making the first move. Antonio quickly accepted, and she was glad that he did. The younger man's assured physical attention brought Cassandra to dizzying heights of pleasure that she hadn't felt in years.
I think that with her, there was a couple of things that maybe blinded her a little bit. One, maybe his looks, and 2, his youth, and possibly her personal situation as far as where she was in relationship-wise.
Antonio reignited a fire in her that had been dormant for too long. As they spent more nights together, Cassandra's smoldering feelings roared into a raging blaze of passion.
This young, attractive guy was giving her the time of her life in the bedroom and treating her just like he treated a girl his age.
In the last few years, you know, it's become kind of cool to be a cougar. I don't know if maybe she played into that. Maybe she liked being older.
Cassandra was hooked, but their fantasy love life couldn't disguise reality. Cassandra recognized that her new man was a player at heart, and it would only be a matter of time before he would move on to someone younger. To keep Antonio interested, Cassandra began doing anything she could to hold his attention.
Clothing, housing, I mean, everything you named, she pretty much did it.
She pretty much took care of him. She made sure he had what he needed. His apartments were in her name, stuff like that.
Cassandra's desperate move worked like a charm. Antonio had never really been taken care of before, and he liked it. In return, bad boy Antonio made sure to demonstrate his appreciation in the bedroom.
She supplemented him with income and financial backing, and I think that she enjoyed it because of the attention that he provided for her.
But for Antonio, it was more than just money that kept him coming back. While Antonio still visited his foster home regularly, being with Cassandra felt like an oasis of calm and nurturing attention that not even his foster family or the church could provide. For now, Cassandra and Antonio's unusual arrangement seemed like the perfect romantic situation for both of them. But their happy relationship would soon trap them in a deadly web of deceit. Antonio and Cassandra's love for each other would force each of them to confront their darkest personal demons. Coming up, detectives struggle to put a face and name on a body burned beyond recognition.
The longer it takes to get started on the investigation, the harder it is to actually solve a case.
And a quarreling couple just may lead the investigation in the right direction.
They'll start arguing, police get called.
Cassandra Kimbrough was a 42-year-old single working mom who had fallen for the much younger 24-year-old Antonio Drayton.
It was that kind of situation where she would do anything that he asked her to do.
Antonio's talent for physical intimacy took Cassandra to heights of ecstasy she'd never before scaled with any other man.
She was getting a second chance at being young again.
But this happy romance would soon face an unexpected challenge. In the early hours of December 30th, 2010, Alachua County detectives were called to a remote roadside where a badly charred body had been discovered in the ashes of a brush fire. Investigators established that the victim was a young African-American woman and that the fire had been set on purpose.
When we first approached the body and started to document the way she was recovered, you could smell the distinct odor of gasoline.
It was evident right away that there was foul play and that this was a homicide.
A painstaking search of the ash-sown crime scene yielded a napkin and a fragment of a cell phone case, but nothing else. Clearly, putting a name on the victim was not going to be easy.
It's a very big deal to be able to identify the person and get started as quickly as possible. The longer it takes to get started on the investigation, the harder it is to actually solve a case.
You're kind of running out of time. The sands of the hourglass are kind of slipping through your fingers because you don't know where to start at that point in time. So you don't have family or relatives or friends or possible loved ones you can actually contact.
Though the woman's hands were badly burned, lab techs refused to give up. A single fingerprint could get the case moving. After many hours, they finally got what they were looking for.
One of her hands was not as badly charred as the other, so they were able to obtain fingerprints from one of her hands.
Detectives ran the fingerprints through their database and soon hit a match. 21-year-old Salia Huda. When detectives interviewed Salia's heartbroken father, he described his daughter as a bright, beautiful girl who was both a good student and a University of Florida cheerleader. According to Salia's dad, he was the last one in the family to see her alive.
She just stopped in and then, left.
Detectives estimated that the fire was set late on the same night that Salia's dad saw her walk out the door for the final time.
People had been trying to call and get a hold of her, and it was unusual for her to not answer her phone.
What, investigators wondered, had happened to Salia after she left her parents' house? The answer might be found at Salia Huda's own apartment nearby. Security guards at Salia's complex reported to police that the young woman's car was missing from the building parking lot. A security log revealed that she left early Wednesday evening not long before she arrived at her family's home.
Her apartment complex actually had a key passcode that you have to use to get in and out so you can see when she came and left from there.
A preliminary exam of Saleha's apartment unit didn't tell police much more.
We didn't see any signs of a struggle. There was no evidence of any wrongdoing or any foul play.
Nothing in her apartment gave us any clues that, anything happened there. We had no evidence that anything happened at her apartment after going through everything.
But when investigators canvassed the complex, what they heard from neighbors proved very interesting. Residents within earshot of Saleha's apartment told police that the young co-ed had a volatile relationship with a long-term boyfriend. The couple frequently argued, and from what neighbors heard through the walls, the boyfriend did all the yelling.
They'll start arguing, police get called.
But neighbors couldn't agree on a name for Saleha's troubling ex-boyfriend. Then, county detectives received a call from a man who identified himself as Saleha Huda's boyfriend, 21-year-old Mike Carter. Mike told investigators he'd spent Tuesday night and Wednesday day at Saleha's apartment until Saleha left to run errands. They were supposed to meet up again that evening.
The plan was that she had to go do some running around. Saleha had to go by her parents, and Mike had plans to then get back with Saleha that evening, and that never occurred.
After hours of waiting patiently to hear from Saleha, Mike called her cell. But the woman who answered wasn't his girlfriend.
It wasn't Saleha, which he thought was really weird because, who answers other people's cell phones?
A female picked up the phone, said, "Hello, what it is?" I said, "It's Mike." And I speak to Saleha, she sleep. So I was okay, can you wake up? It's important. So she, I guess she was gonna tell him. They're well, she said she'll call you tomorrow. I said, okay, then. I'm all right.
Mike was unable to identify the woman's voice and told police he had no idea who she might be. After exhaustive questioning, it became clear to police that Saleha's boyfriend was telling the truth.
He called us. That's always a good faith effort if they come to us first, but you still have to verify that their story is true.
And when police confronted Mike with neighbors' stories of knockdown, drag-out lovers' quarrels, Mike pleaded mistaken identity. He'd only been dating Saleha for a month, he said. The man that neighbors described to police wasn't him. It was Saleha Huda's previous boyfriend. Pressed for a name, Mike admitted the only thing he knew about Saleha's ex was what he'd seen on her cell phone.
You know his name?
Only initial she had in the phone was AD.
Police now had two mysteries to solve on the trail of Saleha Huda's killer. Who was the woman who answered her phone on the night she was killed? And who was AD? But the trail heated up, seemingly on its own. At Saleha's apartment, a young man asked to speak to a detective in charge. He identified himself as Saleha's boyfriend, told investigators that he'd heard about the disappearance, and offered to assist police in their search.
An unidentified male walked up and introduced himself and said that he was the boyfriend of Saleha Huda, and he asked if he could help in any way.
His name? Antonio Drayton. Coming up, dark details of a dysfunctional romance lead investigators down a twisted path.
There was a relationship where there were, many domestic violence issues.
Where a couple's secrets hold the answers to a deadly mystery.
Because it's very easy to remember the truth. It's very difficult to remember a lie.
Despite the age gap, 24-year-old Antonio Drayton and his 42-year-old girlfriend Cassandra Kimbrough made their unusual relationship work.
He was, giving her passion back. It was almost like getting her groove back or feeling young again.
Cassandra worked 2 jobs to both support her family and get her man anything he wanted.
She seemed like she was just caught up in all this. She did whatever Antonio asked her to do.
And theirs was an open relationship. Antonio was free to see whoever he pleased. And as a major player on the Gainesville club scene, he saw a lot that pleased him.
Cassandra, she was just a different breed. She didn't mind whether he had females. She didn't care.
And when he came home to her, Antonio made sure to show Cassandra that she was, and always would be, number one. But police investigating the murder of Saleha Huda were starting to unravel a different tangled romantic history. When the University of Florida co-ed was found burned nearly past the point of identification, Saleha's neighbors and her heartbroken boyfriend Mike all agreed on one thing. Saleha's boyfriend before Mike, known only by the initials AD, had been nothing but trouble.
There was a relationship where there were, many domestic violence issues.
At first, the search for AD seemed like looking for a needle in a haystack. That is until a man with the right initials came forward on his own.
He introduced himself and said that he was the boyfriend of Saleha Huda. He appeared to be very honest, very open, and clearly he was concerned about Saleha's whereabouts from his demeanor, and he asked if he could help in any way.
The Good Samaritan's name? Antonio Drayton. Antonio told officers that he'd met Saleha 2 years earlier and that their relationship had developed into a passionate but volatile affair, one that Saleha's family didn't like.
It was a rocky relationship back and forth, and the family didn't like Antonio at all.
A search through police records indicated that Saleha may have come around to her family's way of thinking. The previous July, the couple had an argument so ferocious that police were called. But once she cooled off, Saleha refused to press charges.
The case just never went forward because really Saleha didn't want it to go forward and just dropped the case.
According to her girlfriends, even though Saleha declared the romance with Antonio over from that point on, their supposed breakup included regular hookups followed by inevitable jealous arguments.
He would kind of blow her off, and then that night, here he'd come calling, well, where are you at? Where are you going? I want to see you.
Saleha's friends told police that just 4 days before Saleha's disappearance, a ladies' room confrontation with Antonio's newest conquest, Angela, sent Saleha out the door and into her car.
They had some words. Something happened down at the club one night. There's always some jealousy that can come up.
When detectives sat down with Antonio, he told them that at first Saleha ignored his calls and his attempts to make up. But by Wednesday, the night Saleha was killed, she seemed to have changed her mind.
I get a text message from Leah. Leah says, where are you? She says, where are you? I said, I'm home. And she was like, how long are you going to be?
But Saleha never showed up. Antonio told police that instead of the two hooking up, he spent the evening with his steady girlfriend Cassandra, watching movies at home and occasionally texting Saleha. But he never got an answer. When she still hadn't replied by 3 a.m., he called her. When it went to voicemail, Antonio said he assumed the worst.
The only time Leah doesn't answer her phone is if she's with her parents or she's mad, but her phone is never off.
When he heard the news of Saleha's death, Antonio knew their contentious romance would eventually lead police straight to his door. So he came to police instead.
I done been in trouble due to Saleha. I don't think it's going to be back on me. And that's how I felt from the jump.
Detectives looked at this Good Samaritan witness from 2 angles.
There's 2 possibilities. You either have a concerned ex or current boyfriend that you have to be respectful to, and you have to consider they have a loss in their family or a close one has been taken from them. At the same time, you can't eliminate them from being a suspect because our job is to be objective and to look at things objectively, and everyone is a possible person of interest.
But with a confirmed alibi from Cassandra backing up his story, police were obligated to put Antonio on the back burner. Instead, they focused on the last person anyone had seen arguing with Saleha. Witnesses had seen Saleha arguing with another club regular named Angela. Angela, police were told, wasn't just any girl on the scene. She was Antonio's latest conquest, and friends said, his new girlfriend. When detectives checked into Angela's background, they immediately promoted her to a person of interest. The fingerprints police had on file for Celia were from a complaint Angela had made against Celia Huda.
Celia was arrested for violation of a restraining order.
Miss Owens took out an injunction against her.
Police questioned Angela and learned that when she hooked up with Antonio, Celia's aggressive jealousy forced her to take out a restraining order, one that Celia had ignored.
She showed up where she wasn't supposed to show up, and she was charged with the violation.
But after that incident, Angela said, Celia seemed to have gotten the message until they crossed paths in the ladies' room on Christmas night. But Angela assured investigators that despite what they may have heard from bystanders, their conversation had been just that, a conversation.
So there was no argument between you guys, no physical...
No, nothing. No argument, no confrontation. And that was the first time we had ever even had a conversation.
Angela told investigators that after their heart-to-heart, the two women's paths never crossed again. And what's more, Angela was nowhere near on the night of the murder, and she could prove it.
She ended up having an alibi that she wasn't there during the time frame of what we're looking at.
Finally, police asked Angela about Antonio's relationship with his older steady, Cassandra Kimbrough. What did Angela know about their arrangement? According to Angela, neither she nor the other girls in Antonio's life even saw Cassandra as competition.
Tony had pretty much convinced her that this lady was somebody who was just looking after him and just was always there to help. So she never for once thought that they were having some sort of relationship.
But Angela shared one thing she thought was unusual about Antonio and Cassandra's relationship. A phone conversation she overheard between them on the night that Celia disappeared had stuck in her mind. And when she described what she heard, shocked police had to ask her to repeat it.
I guess going back to that conversation that he had with Cass that night that you overheard, he was asking for
Bleach
and
rags.
And rags. Okay, anything else?
And gloves.
Gloves?
Yes.
For what?
I don't know.
It was now clear to investigators that no matter which way they turned, all investigative roads led back to Cassandra and Antonio. And yet they remained stonewalled by alibis and a lack of physical proof. Coming up, the surprise discovery of an unexpected and indisputable piece of evidence puts justice seemingly within reach.
As soon as we opened the door, you could smell an overpowering odor of gasoline.
It kind of all snapped into place for us at one time.
May to December couple Antonio Drayton and Cassandra Kimbrough were deep in the throes of a unique love affair. Cassandra underwrote Antonio's playboy lifestyle, and Antonio was free to carry on with any woman he pleased, as long as his heart belonged to her.
Cassandra, she was just a different breed. Like, she didn't mind whether he had females.
He was seeing numerous women at the same time.
But after the burned body of Celia Huda, one of Antonio's harem of long-term part-time girlfriends, was found in the ashes of a remote brush fire. Each new clue police uncovered seemed to point back to Antonio.
Right off the bat, once we sat down with Antonio, we could tell that, he was not being completely truthful with us. We had multiple people of interest, but Antonio's name just kept coming back to the surface.
But without something tangible to connect him to the murder, Antonio was still merely a suspect. The pressure was on to find a key to unlock the case. Physical proof, eyewitness testimony, or a confession would put Antonio at the scene of the crime and place him behind bars for good. From day one of their investigation, Alachua County Sheriff's detectives had been forced to make the most with very little. The scorched earth of the crime scene itself had yielded only a paper napkin and a piece of his cell phone case. If forensic investigators hadn't successfully raised a fingerprint from the otherwise anonymous corpse, they might still be looking for a name instead of the arrest that remained just outside their grasp. Police were now forced to search for what just might be the single most important missing detail. What, they asked themselves, had happened to Saleha's car that night?
She did not dump herself on that county road, so she had to get from point A to point B at some point in time. If she was taken from her apartment or taken from another location, we have to find out where that vehicle is.
After days of searching, Saleha's car was finally discovered, parked in a nearby apartment parking lot. And while the address was nowhere near Saleha's building, or the remote location where her body had been found, it did have one obvious geographical distinction.
Saleha's car was found in an apartment complex within walking distance of Antonio Drayton's apartment.
Crime scene investigators found Saleha's purse and wallet on the car's front seat, but no fingerprints tying Antonio to the car. But the air within the car strongly hinted that it had indeed been used to deliver the co-ed to her gruesome ultimate fate.
As soon as we opened the door, you could smell an overpowering odor of gasoline. We could tell the back passenger floorboard was saturated.
Investigators soon derailed officers to visit every gas station and account for every gas can fill-up between Saleha's apartment and the remote location where her body had been found.
We knew to start checking any stores that would have been open at that time of night and to see if we could come up with anything.
They found what they were looking for at a gas station in the nearby town of Stark. A surveillance video from the night of December 30th showed Saleha Huda's car pulling up to the pump and a woman getting out.
Fortunately, we were able to get video of a woman. Couldn't really identify the woman. She was buying gas, bought like $2 worth of gas in a gas can.
And while police couldn't make out her face, her husky build displayed the truth. It was not Saleha.
Saleha was more small-framed, more petite. This person was larger than Saleha.
Investigators cautiously concluded that it was probably the woman who answered Saleha's phone the last night she was seen alive.
Saleha's boyfriend saying that the female answered her phone that night, so this is when everything starts to click a little bit in your head that we really need to check further into what's going on here.
And another look at the map revealed more. Not only was a gas station on the way to the site where Saleha was dumped, it was the closest fill-up to Antonio's foster family's home.
Antonio has family that lives in Stark, so one of our next efforts was to track down the family, friends, and people that he knew and see if he showed up that night.
When police asked after Antonio's whereabouts on the night in question, family members confirmed that Antonio had made an unannounced late-night visit and had made an unusual request.
They told us that Antonio came by there asking for some money and for a gas can.
And during a phone call on New Year's Day, Antonio's brother Pedro heard something that interested police even more.
I was like, bro, what happened, you know what I'm saying? Like, when they say, ask Kevin, like if I go down, I ain't going down by myself. But
when they heard Cassandra's name, detectives queued up the gas station surveillance footage for Pedro. Antonio's stepbrother instantly confirmed that the woman driver was indeed Antonio's girlfriend.
You certain that was Cassandra?
Cassandra Kimbrough.
Now detectives had to answer a new series of questions. Would Cassandra Kimbrough kill an innocent woman over Antonio Drayton? Had she finally had enough of their open relationship and in a jealous rage lashed out at her main rival? If so, were any of Antonio's conquests safe? The only way to get answers was to bring in Cassandra Kimbrough. As cops grilled Cassandra, she stayed cool and stuck to the story they'd heard from Antonio. On the night of the murder, they'd been at home watching movies and enjoying some alone time.
He used Cassandra as an alibi. I was with Cassandra and we were in Gainesville. I went and interviewed Cassandra, and she had kind of the same story. She was the alibi for Antonio. So here you have two people that were alibying each other. Where do we go from here?
The investigation was at a deadlock. While police had enough circumstantial connections to detain Cassandra and Antonio, they needed more hard evidence to arrest them, hold them, and get to work on convincing them to tell the whole story.
Things fit together nicely, but you still have to figure out who all the players are and also the testimony of what they're telling us. Are they credible?
Detectives kept digging. Finally, their work paid off. New evidence from a surprising source helped them bolster their case. Using cell phone records, police pinpointed Antonio's whereabouts on the night Celia went missing. And Antonio wasn't home that night as he said. He or his phone had been at the remote scene of the blaze that burned Celia almost past recognition.
Through GPS, we were able to put Antonio Drayton at the crime scene 10 minutes prior to when the 911 call came in of the fire.
And then finally, old evidence delivered the break in the case they'd been waiting for. Only 2 items had been recovered from the blackened body dump site: a cell phone case fragment and a paper napkin. While none of Celia's friends or family had recognized the cell phone case, a late-breaking report from the state crime lab ID'd DNA from the napkin.
We had sent that napkin for analysis, and FDLE did find DNA of the suspect that they had, Antonio Drayton.
The Alachua County Sheriff's Department now had the proof they needed to arrest Antonio, charge him in Celia Huda's murder, and hold Cassandra Kimbrough as an accessory. Police hoped that with both killers off the street and separated from each other, they would be able to obtain full confessions and a conviction that would keep them both behind bars for as long as possible. But would love prove stronger than the law? Coming up, will putting Antonio and Cassandra in the hot seat finally give investigators the proof they need?
All the pieces of the puzzle were together by this point.
And just how far are two lovers willing to go before turning on each other?
She knew exactly what she was getting into, and she did it anyway.
In the final days of 2010, University of Florida cheerleader Celia Huda had turned up dead and burnt nearly beyond recognition in a remote wooded area north of Gainesville. Now, after nearly a month-long exhaustive investigation, police finally had enough evidence to arrest her ex-boyfriend Antonio Drayton and Cassandra Kimbrough for Celia's murder.
We already had all the cell phone records. We had the video from the store. We had the family telling us, that he had showed up.
From the beginning, Antonio claimed that he and Cassandra had spent the night of the murder together. But confronted with DNA proof, his sugar mama became his scapegoat.
Once we showed him that we have physical evidence that his DNA was at the scene, then he started changing his story. He blamed Cassandra.
Antonio said he told Cassandra to personally collect a $150 debt Celia owed him. But according to Antonio, Cassandra had taken her boy toy's anger to the next level.
And she came in and she told me they fought. And she said she told her the belt.
Antonio told police that even though he had nothing to do with the murder, he went the distance for Cassandra.
So she poured the gas and she lit the...
She lit the body, yeah. She lit the body up.
He was the accomplice of just helping getting rid of the body. It was all Cassandra. He was just helping out, and he just witnessed.
But detectives weren't buying what Antonio Drayton was selling.
We knew that he was just grasping at straws, trying to figure out something to help get himself out of it.
Police went to work on Cassandra, and it didn't take long for Antonio's longtime lover to become his accuser.
But you can't implicate me in it. I didn't do it.
According to Cassandra, Celia had gone to Antonio's apartment to tell the local Casanova that they were through. Police believe that jealous Antonio simply couldn't take it. As Antonio's hands tightened around her throat, Celia's pleading eyes made him feel like she was his again.
He strangled her. He pretty much compressed her neck until it snapped.
He panicked. He called Cassandra to come over and help. And then from that point, they drove around for a while trying to figure out what to do.
Together, they hatched a plan to douse the body in gasoline and burn it beyond recognition on a remote roadside. Even though Antonio Drayton and Cassandra Kimbrough had crossed the line together, police and prosecutors were prepared to see them pay the price separately.
They decided to use Cassandra as a witness, so they worked out a plea deal with Cassandra to be a state witness in this case.
When prosecutors offered Cassandra a deal, she took it. Cassandra confessed to her part in the cover-up and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Some close to the case felt the punishment was too lenient for the crime.
Her cooperation was very needed and very helpful. However, 2 years, it wasn't like the crime was over and she ran to the police and said, help me, help me, help me. I felt like I had to help this person and help us out from the beginning. She helped us out when she knew that there was no other avenue to get out of this crime but to tell us.
In the close to a year Antonio spent awaiting trial, he grew increasingly afraid that Cassandra's testimony might strand him on death row. Finally, at the 11th hour, prosecutors gave Antonio the option to plead guilty to second-degree murder, rather than stand trial for murder 1. Antonio said yes, and the judge sentenced him to 45 years in prison.
We had overwhelming amount of evidence, and there was no getting out of this, and that's the only reason why he went ahead and took the plea deal.
For Celia's friends and family, perhaps the worst part is that at no point in the investigation or plea hearings did Antonio confirm how Celia died. The young co-ed strangulation by her jealous ex-lover was still just police conjecture.
They asked him, did he want to explain what happened? He said no. He didn't want to give them any closure. He didn't give them anything. He gave us nothing.
And only Antonio really knows what happened.
She was an awkward high school student struggling with her sexuality.
Carrie called me and she goes, I think I'm gay. I like girls.
She found acceptance and love in the arms of a popular upperclassman.
Carrie Murphy and Rebecca Keller's relationship was consuming to both of them.
I had never seen Carrie become so obsessed about a person ever.
But their budding romance would be ripped apart by a horrifying crime.
She had multiple stab wounds to her body.
On her legs, on her arms, hands, neck, in the face. It was obvious that it was a very brutal attack.
To uncover the truth, investigators would have to unravel a tangled web of lust, lies, and a betrayal too horrifying to be believed.
She was having this affair that kind of raises suspicion that they're scheming this together.
The obsession with being in love with each other drove them to do one of the darkest things that I can ever imagine.
High school can be a difficult time for a lot of young people. That seemed to be especially true for 15-year-old freshman Carrie Murphy.
She was kind of an outcast in a way. She looked a little different than everybody.
Desperate for acceptance, Carrie had been willing to try anything to fit in.
You could see that in a range of different Facebook and Instagram posts. There'd be some posts with boots and dresses, and then some with sideways hats and tank tops.
She went through a gothic stage, black fingernails, black eyeshadow, things like that. I really think she was just exploring and trying to find a place that she was comfortable with.
Life hadn't always been so confusing for Carrie. Born and raised in Houston, Texas, she'd grown up in a loving middle-class family who adored her from day one.
It was, in my eyes, the typical American dream childhood. Blue-collar dad, mom that worked 8 to 5, boy and a girl. She and I had a very open relationship. Carrie knew that she could talk to me about anything.
Carrie also had a strong bond with her father, Don. Though her relationship with her mother, Mary Ann, was a bit more complicated. Mary Ann had always pushed both of her children to succeed. While that approach worked with Scott, Carrie found it harder to live up to her mother's expectations.
She was trying to follow in my footsteps and find that same groove that I got into, because school came easily to me and it didn't for her. She used to say, you know, Scott, I'm really getting tired of having to live up to your name.
By the time Carrie started high school, her physical appearance had also become another source of anxiety.
I do think as she got older, maybe closer to her teenage years, she was uncomfortable with her size.
Carrie was never the small, petite, typical girl that, you know, teenage boys went after.
But there was one boy at school who showed interest in Carrie, a fellow outsider named Zane.
I knew Zane. I grew up with Zane. We lived in the same neighborhood. Zane was really like a rebel. He was more of like a mysterious type.
Zane was a guy that she knew that was kind of weird in her eyes, that showed interest in her, that she wasn't at all interested in him.
Once Carrie made her feelings clear to Zane, they were able to become friends. And their relationship gave Carrie the confidence she needed to find a social group where she felt truly accepted.
She had been in the choir, and she made a lot of friends there. Most of her friends that she had, she met through the choir.
And it was in choir practice that Carrie first laid eyes on the girl who would change her life forever. 19-year-old senior Rebecca Keller.
Her nickname was Bunny. She was very high-spirited, very funny.
Rebecca was 3 to 4 years older than Carrie. They clicked immediately. It was an immediate draw towards each other.
In Carrie's eyes, Rebecca seemed to be everything she wasn't: cool, confident, and popular. What Rebecca didn't have were the things Carrie took for granted.
She grew up in a trailer park. She didn't get along with her dad.
Rebecca Keller's upbringing was probably the best that her parents could do and provide for her. They had a little less income. They lived in a little poorer community. Rebecca wasn't provided the things that Carrie was.
When Rebecca noticed Carrie's formidable singing chops, she took the shy freshman under her wing. Carrie was thrilled to be accepted by a popular upperclassman. But Rebecca told Carrie she was interested in being more than just friends.
Rebecca had told me that she was bisexual.
Rebecca's flirtatious advances caught Carrie by surprise. Not because they made Carrie feel uncomfortable, but rather because the attraction was mutual.
At 15 years old and your hormones are going crazy and you don't know what you're really feeling, and this is, you know, there was her comfort.
And she goes, well, Scott, I think I'm gay. I like girls. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. It's, you know, whoever treats you well, that's what matters. When she finally found someone that gave her that love and affection, Carrie drew towards it as something she had never had before.
And once Carrie and Rebecca's friendship turned romantic, the couple's bond only intensified.
Carrie Murphy and Rebecca Keller's relationship was consuming to both of them. This may have been Carrie Murphy's first relationship with anyone in a romantic sense. And she fell head over heels.
I had never seen Carrie become completely and utterly infatuated with a single person.
She may not have ever had someone like that in her life before that was just so accepting of exactly who she was.
While Carrie's brother Scott had understood her feelings, Carrie worried her parents, especially her mother Marianne, wouldn't be as accepting. So at first, Carrie tried to keep her romance with Rebecca a secret from Mom and Dad.
Carrie did the normal teenage thing where she would sneak out, or she would, oh, I'm going to the movies with my friends, but she was meeting up with Rebecca.
They lived a short distance from the house, so if she ran and did something, she could run over there and see, or...
But after several months of dating, Rebecca encouraged Carrie to come out to her mother and father.
She didn't want to hide or feel like she had to be in a closet somewhere. She just wanted to be open and be happy about it. When she finally came out to our parents, I think she was a lot more comfortable with that. She felt a lot better about being her.
To Carrie's surprise, both her parents seemed okay with the news.
Mom did have a small learning curve on learning to deal with her daughter being in a homosexual relationship because her mom was very old-fashioned, but she understood this would make her daughter happy.
Rebecca and Carrie even began planning for a future together beyond high school.
Carrie had different versions of it. I can go to work, and she can go to work, and we can be a normal couple. And then it was drastic things like moving away to California where gay marriage was accepted. It all involved being with Rebecca for life. And Rebecca reciprocated those feelings.
But before any of Carrie and Rebecca's plans could materialize, their young lives would be turned upside down by a vicious crime. Sunday night, July 15th, 2012. Carrie's father and brother are both working the night shift, and she and her mother, Marianne, are home alone. At 1:06 a.m., 911 dispatch receives a frantic call from the Murphy residence. On the line is Carrie.
She told the 911 operator that someone had kicked in the back door and that she then heard her mother screaming, that she ran out of the house.
She had fled the scene to the neighbor's house. So the dispatch and first responders treated it as an active break-in at that time. So officers arrive on scene, and their first priority is security.
Carrie had come outside and said that her mother was still inside. But when the officers respond, they don't know if there's any suspects in the house. They entered through the back door, which was already open, and then they systematically go through the house.
Inside, the officers find no trace of Marianne or the alleged intruder until they reach the back bedroom.
They went in and found Mary Murphy in her bedroom.
She was found deceased, laying on her bed, and she had multiple stab wounds to her body.
Coming up, as Carrie mourns the loss of her mother, detectives attempt to track down the killer and uncover their motive.
She was asleep in her bed, and they targeted her directly.
This was someone who was angry. There was passion behind whatever happened in here.
It's the spring of 2012, and 16-year-old Carrie Murphy has been swept off her feet by her first love, 20-year-old Rebecca Keller.
Carrie and Rebecca were obsessed. They were completely and utterly intertwined with each other, with every aspect of life.
But Carrie and Rebecca's happiness is soon eclipsed by a terrifying crime when Carrie's mother, Marianne, is found brutally murdered inside the Murphys' home.
She was in the master bedroom of the home. She was covered in blood.
Upon learning that her mother is dead, Carrie is beside herself, as is her brother Scott.
I was at work. I worked the graveyard shift. I get a phone call from my sister's phone. She says, Scott, someone broke into the house. Mom's dead. Dropped everything I had in my hands, and I started to panic. I didn't know whether to be sad, whether to be angry. I wanted to know who, when, why. I wanted to cry and scream at the same time. I called my father to let him know that he needed to come home, so he started heading this way.
With both Carrie's father and brother en route, Harris County investigators begin processing the crime scene.
There was just numerous wounds to her body all over, on her legs, on her arms, hands, neck, in the face, on her chest, and numerous severe slashes to the neck. It was obvious that it was a very brutal attack.
Underneath Marianne's pillow, police find an unfired .22 caliber pistol.
It was found wedged under her pillow, and my first indication was she just sleeps with it there just for safety.
Me and my sister were raised around guns. That little pistol, Marianne knew how to use it, and that was the first line of defense. Grab it if you need it.
The fact that Marianne never grabbed her gun suggests she'd been ambushed while she slept. But why would anyone want her dead?
There was no indication that would make me suspect somebody came in to do a home invasion or a robbery.
A true home invasion is to break into a home and to steal something, and there was nothing stolen from this house.
In fact, it seems the mysterious assailant had entered the home with only one intention: to kill Marianne Murphy.
There's a back window. That window was broken.
There were bricks and some glass from the window that was on the ground, indicating the brick was thrown through it.
Someone was able to get into that house, was able to go to where Marianne was. They knew where she was. She was no threat. She was asleep in her bed, and they targeted her directly.
Detective Craig Clopton takes Marianne's daughter Carrie aside for questioning.
She made the 911 call, and she was the only person at home at the time. So they listened to what she had to say and had to investigate her theory of what happened.
Carrie told me she had been up in the dining room scrapbooking, got tired and went to bed, and wasn't in her bedroom very long before she heard a crash. And she says that someone had kicked in the back door and that she then heard her mother screaming.
Carrie says that once she heard her mother screaming, she fled the house and went to her neighbor's yard across the street.
She ran out and called 911 from across the street. She stayed with some witnesses who let her use their phone until the police arrived, which was only a couple of minutes later.
While CSIs continue to process the crime scene, Detective Clopton takes Carrie back to the station, where they are joined by Carrie's father, Don, and her brother, Scott.
Don Murphy and his son, Carrie's brother, Scott, came down to the office and were interviewed there. He wanted to find out what was going on.
Neither Don nor Scott can think of anyone who would want to hurt Marianne. But as Detective Clopton talks with both men, he takes special notice of how Don Murphy appears to be responding to his wife's death.
Initially, upon meeting him, he didn't seem terribly disturbed by finding out that his wife was killed. He just didn't seem bothered by it.
Speaking with the Murphys' neighbors, police learned that Don and Marianne might have been having problems in their marriage.
I knew that he drank and that he oftentimes slept in the living room, which indicated that there may be a rocky relationship.
Is it possible Marianne's husband had something to do with her murder? Detectives take a closer look at his alibi.
His alibi was that he was at work. That was easily confirmed through his job that he was there.
While Don Murphy seems to be in the clear, detectives do uncover another eyebrow-raising detail about the marriage.
They got the phone records from Marianne's, her own phone, and they realized that she had communicated on her phone with another male individual.
The number belongs to a man who worked with Marianne.
She was an employee with DPS, Department of Public Safety, for a long time.
And apparently, Mary Ann's relationship with her coworker hadn't been exclusively professional.
But at some point, she started having an affair with this gentleman. When I initially found out that she was having this affair, that kind of raised a suspicion.
Mary Ann and this other individual had some form of relationship, and that person was the last person she spoke to.
Coming up, as detectives take a closer look at Mary Ann's affair, the case is turned upside down by an unexpected confession.
She eventually comes back, and she's like, he wants to tell you that he did it.
On any other night, 16-year-old Carrie Murphy might have been spending time with her girlfriend, 20-year-old Rebecca Keller. But on June 16th, 2012, a mysterious intruder entered the Murphy residence and murdered her mother, Mary Ann, by stabbing her more than 70 times. Police already have a suspect in mind, a co-worker of Mary Ann's with whom she'd allegedly been having an affair.
They had a sexual relationship, an extramarital affair. In cases like this, would that be a potential avenue that you wanted to check out? Yes.
Detectives track down Mary Ann's lover, but the man appears to be genuinely upset to learn of her murder and says he's willing to help investigators any way he can.
He seemed very forthcoming. He said that, they had been having a relationship, that it was strictly sexual. They would send nudie photos back and forth. He had never been to her house. He never struck me as he was hiding anything. Every question he was, no problem, no problem. This is my phone number.
While examining his phone, police realized that Mary Ann's lover also had an airtight alibi.
Through his phone records, ultimately let me know exactly where he was, that he had never been anywhere close to the scene.
The investigation is back to square one. So police turn back to the last person known to have seen Mary Ann Murphy alive, her daughter, Carrie. In reviewing Carrie's story, police find several things that don't line up with the evidence at the crime scene.
There was glass from a window from the back door that was broken, and the glass was on the wrong side. So if you were breaking in, you would expect to see the glass on the inside of the home, where in this case, it was on the outside.
Investigators in the crime scene unit are confident that this is not a break-in, that this looks like a staged scene.
The most troubling inconsistency has to do with when Carrie called 911.
She called 911 and said that someone had broken in her house, was assaulting her mother, and that she ran out and called 911 from across the street.
First responders saw the scene, saw the blood. Some of that blood appeared to have been there for more than immediate time, that there was some coagulation happening.
The coagulated blood suggests a significant gap between the attack on Mary Ann and the time that Carrie called police.
The timeline doesn't match. We know how long it took for the deputies to get there and go inside and find your mother. That would have been within minutes after you said you heard your mother scream.
Investigators suspect that Carrie is hiding something.
I hadn't formulated an opinion as to what her involvement was, but I knew that she knew something. So I wanted to get her tied in on a recorded statement.
With the permission of Carrie's father, Don, investigators sit down with the 16-year-old for a formal interview.
When she's pressed by detectives for details about the timing of events, the fact that there was no forced entry, she then begins to switch her story.
She took a polygraph test and didn't do well on that. At that point, I'm more confrontational. I'm just downright telling her, I know you're lying. I know you know what happened.
With her back against the wall, Carrie breaks down and admits she knows who killed her mother.
She said, well, there's this guy. His name is Zane.
Zane is Carrie's friend from school.
She said, it was him. She said, when I heard the door kicking in, before I left out, I heard them in the room talking, and I could recognize Zane's voice.
But why would Zane kill Marianne? And why would Carrie try to cover for him? According to Carrie, it all stemmed from her complicated relationship with her mom and her romance with Rebecca Keller. Apparently, Marianne Murphy hadn't been as tolerant of Carrie and Rebecca's relationship as everyone thought.
She didn't agree with the age difference between Carrie and Rebecca, and she voiced that opinion very often and very bluntly.
It wasn't about the fact that her daughter was seeing another girl. It was the fact that Rebecca was not the best influence.
Mom could see the obsessions beginning, and she didn't feel that it needed to continue. She was so concerned with making sure that we did succeed and that we did go where we needed to go. She didn't want us to have any connections that held us back. She drew the line, and it was no more. You are not allowed to see her anymore.
But Carrie tells detectives that she disobeyed her mother's request.
Carrie would lie to Marianne a lot. Once Marianne would go to sleep, she would go in and steal Marianne's keys and take off with her car.
Marianne was going to punish her, took her phone from her.
Marianne also grounded Carrie, which meant she could no longer see or communicate with Rebecca. So Carrie decided to reach out to her friend Zane. According to Carrie, a couple days before the murder, she asked Zane if he could help her figure out a way to get out of being grounded.
Carrie had solicited him to come to the house and beat on the wall to scare the mom.
And Carrie's idea to scare her mom had to do with an incident that occurred at their house a few nights earlier.
The one night, Carrie's mom caught Carrie outside.
Carrie Murphy's lie at that time is there was a strange suspect around the house, so I was really just out of the house looking for this suspect.
Carrie's mother knew that was a lie and grounded her daughter, but Carrie had come up with an idea to get out of being in trouble.
So she wanted Zane to come and knock on the wall of her bedroom and run off so that the mom would think, hey, there is somebody suspicious outside. So maybe Carrie was telling me the truth about why she went out and she won't be punished.
But Carrie claims that when Zane showed up that night, he barged into the house with a knife and took their plan to scare Marianne to an unthinkably gruesome level.
She's admitting to, yeah, I knew this guy was gonna come over my house, but I didn't know he was gonna murder my mom. I lied about it because I knew he was coming over.
Is Carrie telling the truth? To find out, investigators bring Zane down to the station for questioning. Seated across from detectives, Zane seems confused and comes across much more like a frightened teenager than a cold-blooded killer. Zane also tells investigators he doesn't know anything about Marianne Murphy's murder.
He initially was, yeah, I know Carrie, but the night of the murder, I was at home. I don't even know where Carrie stays. And this kid just, to me, he didn't seem bright enough to do that. So we were gonna let him go home. I didn't feel confident in charging him.
But before Zane is released, Detective Clopton asks him to take a polygraph.
We give him a polygraph so that nobody else can question, well, did you give him a polygraph? And for that only reason, not that I thought he was lying to me.
A polygraph examiner takes Zane into another room to administer the test.
She's gone with him for a while, longer than normal. She eventually comes back and she's like, hey, he's ready to confess to you. He wants to tell you that he did it.
According to the examiner, Zane had abruptly changed his tune in the middle of the test.
He's saying there was an accident, he just got scared.
Zane tells police that for some reason he decided to take a knife with him to the Murphy residence that evening. Initially, he didn't think he was going to use it, but as he was standing over Marianne, she suddenly woke up.
He said that she woke up and startled me, and I just panicked, and I stabbed her.
It's a startling confession and a stunning turn of events.
I'm like, wow, this is a new one on me. Sometimes you call them wrong.
Coming up, police grow increasingly suspicious of Zane's confession.
I don't think he knew what was going on. I've got to prove that he did this or didn't.
And as a possible motive comes into focus, evidence suggests there might have been more than one killer.
I know that there was a plan.
They're scheming this together.
The investigation into who killed Marianne Murphy has been rocked by an unexpected confession. A friend of Marianne's daughter named Zane has just taken credit for the murder.
He's saying there was an accident, he just got scared. He said that she woke up and startled me, and I just panicked, and I stabbed her.
But something about Zane's admission of guilt doesn't sit right with investigators. From the moment they'd first sat down with Zane, he'd come across as confused and possibly even impaired.
He knew that he was arrested, but I don't think he knew what was going on.
Detectives suspect Zane might just be telling them what he thinks they want to hear. To test that theory, detectives put him through another round of detailed questioning.
I've got to prove that he did this or didn't. He initially told me he doesn't even know where she lives. So, okay, well, Zane, if you did this, tell me, how do you get to her room?
He made a remark about having to walk up a flight of stairs to get to Marianne's room, and they lived in a one-story house.
I say, Zane, stop lying. If you've been over there, you know exactly where the room is.
On top of the logistical holes in Zane's story, his parents are also adamant that their son is innocent. They tell police that their son was at home and playing video games on the night of the murder. And they have proof.
There was a photograph of him there at the house, and we were able to corroborate that it was an actual photograph and had not been manipulated. He was at home with his family the night that Marianne was killed.
But if Zane was innocent of the crime, why had he confessed?
He says he gave a statement to Sergeant Clopton because he thought he would be released and he could go home. This is a suspect who is not of an average intelligence. So he was a little bit intimidated by the whole process. With all of that information, we decided to dismiss his charges. Then we began our investigation further into who actually committed the murder.
And in detectives' minds, the person who had been lying to police from the get-go was Carrie Murphy.
Little lies become big lies, and detectives in this case were great at pressing those little lies. And she continued to believe that she could outsmart them by changing her story.
Detectives turn back to Carrie, demanding answers. But this time, they find the teen less willing to cooperate.
So at that point, she's asked for an attorney. It has to cease, so that interview stopped right then.
With Carrie stonewalling, detectives reach out to her brother Scott for help. Scott reiterates that their mother was hoping to put a stop to Carrie and Rebecca's relationship because of their age difference, as well as Carrie's extreme fixation on Rebecca.
When things started taking a turn with my mother's acceptance of the relationship, it was more based on the obsession. That's when Mom started to have a bad taste for the relationship.
But according to Scott, that wasn't all. Just days before the murder, their mother had discovered some racy text messages.
Carrie had been texting back and forth. They had been sending nude photos as well.
The text messages were not something a mother of a 16-year-old girl expected to find on a phone. They were quite intimate. That was a turning point with Carrie as far as, trying to work with Mom on things. And that was a turning point with Mom on trying to work with Carrie because it was against her wishes. This is a mom who is taken care of her and loved her and done everything she could for her. The one thing she's asking her to do, Carrie won't do.
But according to Scott, the intimate text messages were just the tip of the iceberg.
There was a point where my father came home from work and Rebecca was actually at the house with my sister. And I believe they were in the bathroom or in the shower. My dad flipped. He was not happy that his teenage daughter had her girlfriend at the house alone.
Though Scott says his father's anger was nothing compared to that of their mother.
She confronted Carrie with all this behavior that she was doing and basically told her that Rebecca Keller is not welcome here no more.
However, Scott tells police his mother hadn't stopped there.
My mother actually ended up calling the police, and Rebecca was charged with trespassing.
Rebecca told me Carrie's mom put a restraining order on me.
Carrie started hating her for that. There was that rift in their relationship already, but now she's trying to stop her from seeing the one she loves.
The tension between Carrie and Mom became just part of the pun, but you could cut it with a knife. It didn't speak to each other. It was dinner's ready, your clothes are done, that's it. Get up, go to school, and come home, and that's it. That's all you do.
Listening to Scott Murphy, detectives are beginning to wonder if Carrie might have had a co-conspirator in her mother's murder.
We turned our attention to Rebecca Keller. Rebecca being in the relationship with Carrie, having learned that Mary Ann was not pleased that this relationship was going on, that gave us a picture of a possible motive, certainly a lead that we needed to follow.
Speaking with some of Rebecca Keller's friends, police confirmed that the 20-year-old had been vocally upset about the restraining order Carrie's mom placed on her. But it hadn't stopped Rebecca from figuring out a way to keep in contact with Carrie.
Rebecca gave Carrie a cell phone so that the mom wouldn't know that she was talking to her. They called it the bunny phone.
The news of a secret phone grabs detectives' attention. If Carrie had a cell phone, why hadn't she used it to call police on the night of the murder?
When Carrie Murphy exits the home on the night of the murder, she goes across the street and there's a neighbor. He gives Carrie the phone to call 911.
Why don't you use the phone that you have and call 911?
To detectives, the most likely answer was that there was evidence on Carrie's phone that could link her or Rebecca Keller to the murder. Police doubt Carrie or Rebecca will simply hand over the phone. So they turn to Scott for help.
I asked Scott, okay, do you know that number? And he said, yeah. So he gives me that phone number. I'm gonna order the phone records.
On August 6th, detectives subpoena Carrie's phone records. While they wait for the request to be approved, they bring Rebecca Keller in for questioning. When detectives sit down with Rebecca, she confirms the existence of the bunny phone. But she surprises investigators when she claims that she and Carrie Murphy haven't spoken in weeks.
She's acting like she's forthcoming, that, yeah, we liked each other, we tried to have a relationship, but it didn't work, and that's been about a month and a half ago. I haven't talked to her since then. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'll just get a statement from her of that. I had nothing else to confront her with, so I leave.
No sooner has Detective Clopton left the interview room than he receives the text records and call log from Carrie and Rebecca's bunny phone. One quick glance at them reveals a different story than what Rebecca claimed.
Phone records show Carrie and Rebecca talking a lot.
It's like the more that they were told they shouldn't be together and that they couldn't be together, they pushed harder to be together.
The phone records also indicate that the couple had texted each other several times on the night of the murder.
I see how much texting they're doing, and I know that they're texting close to the time frame of the murder.
When confronted with the text records, Rebecca's entire demeanor changes.
So then I start telling her, okay, well, I know that y'all were talking to each other. I know some of the conversations. I got these text messages. And she says, okay. I went over there because Carrie called me and said she had killed her mom. So I went over there just to help her cover up. When I get there, Carrie's got blood all on her clothes. She tells Carrie, hey, you ought to make it look like a burglary. Carrie comes up with the idea, hey, I can blame it on Zane.
Is Rebecca Keller telling the truth? Had Carrie Murphy really acted alone when she killed her mother? A search of the internet history on Carrie's cell phone seems to corroborate at least part of Rebecca's statement.
Carrie was Googling what's the quickest way to kill somebody. She used sleeping pills and just different methods.
But the phone records also suggest that Rebecca Keller was more of a collaborator than an innocent bystander.
Well, those Google searches were at the same time she's talking on the phone with Rebecca. I know that they're scheming this together.
I know that there was a plan, and they felt that they needed to get rid of Mary Ann so that they could continue their relationship. Once everything was investigated and came to light, it was clear that they were both involved in the planning. They wanted to be together, and Mary Ann stood in the way.
Armed with this information, investigators charged both Carrie Murphy and Rebecca Keller with first-degree murder. Coming up, as Carrie and Rebecca's trial dates approach, investigators must wrestle with a huge unanswered question.
The question in my mind was, who did the stabbing?
Will the lack of a clear-cut answer jeopardize the entire case?
They couldn't see outside of the box of what was going to happen.
"16-year-old Carrie Murphy and her 20-year-old girlfriend Rebecca Keller are charged with the brutal murder of Carrie's mother, Mary Ann. While the girls await trial, Carrie's family posts her bail. However, Rebecca Keller remains in jail. As both girls' trial dates grow closer, investigators still aren't sure who actually wielded the knife that took Mary Ann Murphy's life. Until a series of jailhouse phone calls exposes the gruesome truth.
All of these phone calls that these two girls had were recorded.
Rebecca says, I'm just glad that you didn't see what happened in there. And Carrie said, I did. I was in the hallway and I looked.
Rebecca says, you weren't supposed to see that. I told you to stay in your room. That let me know then that Rebecca had done the stabbing.
This new information also allows prosecutors to finally put together a timeline for the murder.
Carrie lets Rebecca in, tells her her mom's sleeping. Rebecca tells her, okay, wait in your room.
Then Rebecca got on that bed, and she proceeded to stab Mary Ann over and over and over. At some point, they decide we need to stage some scene. They break the glass. Once Rebecca is safely away, Carrie decides to make this 911 call.
The couple's jailhouse phone conversations also revealed the reason they decided to kill Mary Ann on the day they did.
That's where the bunny phone comes into play. Mary Ann catches Carrie lying.
Mom told her, well, what's the passcode to your phone? Carrie wouldn't give her the passcode. And the mom said, well, I'm gonna take this to work with me, and I know guys there that's gonna get this unlocked, and I'm gonna see what's going on.
They knew that if what was on that phone was found out, that Rebecca would go to jail because there was sexting on there and there was pictures on there, and she was too old.
Carrie was like, I can't let Mama get back to work with that phone. And that's when she started Googling what's the quickest way to kill somebody. And they made that plan.
In December of 2012, 2 weeks before Carrie's 17th birthday, a judge rules that she will stand trial as an adult. But despite both Rebecca Keller and Carrie Murphy facing first-degree murder charges, neither case ever goes to trial.
Rebecca entered into a guilty plea. Carrie entered a plea on her own, admitted guilt, and took what the state offered.
Carrie got 30 years, and Rebecca got 60 years.
What had started as a passionate romance between two teenage girls desperate to be together ends with an unthinkable murder and a loving family torn apart forever.
There's never a day that goes by that I don't miss her. I miss her more than anything, but I think she was doing what she thought was right to make sure her child succeeded. But
they seemed to be a happily married couple.
They had 2 kids. They had a nice house. They were very active in their church.
But the temptation of a friendship grown too close upends their perfect marriage.
He was infatuated by her.
That's when fate seemed to intervene.
He got up closer to the car, and he seen that he was lifeless in the driver's seat.
Had this been an unfortunate accident?
It could have been a hunter in the woods who just took a shot at it at the darkness.
Or was the truth much more sinister and cold-blooded?
He said she told me that she would show me how much she loved me.
He would drive by and she would wave at him. He would bring her flowers. It was eating at him so bad that he had done this.
I think she totally duped him. I think a normal person can't fathom somebody doing something that heinous.
To most residents of Festus, Missouri, Tammy Holman appeared to embody everything a small-town wife and mother should be. She and her husband, Larry, had 2 beautiful children.
They had a nice house that Larry bought prior to the marriage. They were very active in their church.
Home life between my mom and dad usually seemed pretty good. You know, they seemed happy.
Tammy and Larry's marriage had been a love story over 15 years in the making. Church is where Tammy and Larry first met. Tammy was only 16 years old at the time, while Larry was 28.
We were at the same church, and Tammy was even younger than myself, so I remember back from when she was very young, and she just kind of grew up in the church.
Tammy was your typical small-town girl. She was very popular.
She was kind of an outgoing person, and you know, wouldn't necessarily say flirtatious, but maybe that's an appropriate word.
The 12-year age difference meant the two didn't interact much until Tammy graduated high school in 1986, and the 18-year-old had caught Larry's attention.
They went on their first date, and from there, things escalated quickly.
It was a whirlwind type of romance because they started dating in 86 and they got married in October of 86. I think at that time, she definitely made him happy. They obviously got along well. The concern I had, and I think the rest of our family had, was, are you moving too fast? You know, you've only been dating a short period of time. She's a lot younger than you. You know, just make sure you're thinking these things through before you do it.
But Tammy and Larry showed no signs of pumping the brakes on their relationship. After tying the knot, they settled into a comfortable home and soon had 2 children, a daughter, Natasha, and a son, Josh.
My mom was the caregiver. She always made sure that we had what we needed, and she was always with us. My dad was just incredibly hardworking. He would work, put in long hours, put in overtime all the time, just to provide for us.
For the next decade, the Holman family seemed to thrive. But as the kids got older, Larry's schedule at the chemical plant where he worked started to take a toll.
He did have to work midnights a lot, so during the days, there were a lot of times where it was just me, my mom, and my sister, because he was either sleeping or at the factory.
When Larry wasn't working, he was usually doing what he loved most.
And my dad was an outdoorsman. He loved to hike, loved to hunt. I think hunting was his #1 passion.
Deer season was our very special time together, so we both looked forward to that.
Tammy was often left at home, alone with the children, and her and Larry's once solid marriage began to fray.
So as time goes on in their marriage, Larry, he's working odd hours at work all times of day. Tammy just wasn't getting what she needed from him.
There were times where they would get into arguments and fight a lot. But as I got a little older, 8, 9, and 10, I started realizing what the issue was, what the fights were about. And I always just chalked it up to my dad having to work late.
Then, in the summer of 1999, Tammy noticed there was someone close to her and Larry who was eager to give her the attention Larry did not. Her husband's best friend, 47-year-old Charlie Miller.
Larry knew Charlie Miller for many years through church. Larry was the type of person that he befriended any and everybody.
Charlie was really present in our family. I mean, I have memories of Charlie holding me during church. He was very much involved with my mom and dad. My dad and I went out to Charlie's property in DeSoto and shoot rifles and stuff like that.
While Charlie and Larry's friendship was genuine, Charlie had always carried a secret torch for Tammy.
Charlie was infatuated with Tammy, and she was a pretty girl, so why wouldn't you be?
Being that Tammy was his best friend's wife and that he was married himself, Charlie had kept his feelings for her under wraps for years. But when Charlie and his wife began having problems, he began to spend more time at the Holman home.
When Charlie finally got the nerve to ask his wife for a divorce, it seems as though that's when he really started to think about pursuing a relationship with Tammy.
He would come around the house when my dad wasn't home, and they really just stayed confined to the kitchen or out in the garage.
I was over there all the time, and on certain occasions he'd sent Tammy flowers. He said he was doing it as a friend, but I just didn't have a good vibe about it.
Charlie Miller would actually come over during the week whenever Larry Holman would be at work, and he would bring by cartons of eggs. And in the egg cartons, Charlie Miller would actually have placed money, like he had placed a $20 bill, because he felt that Tammy wasn't living the lifestyle that she should have.
Between the money, the breakfasts, and the flowers, Tammy caught on pretty quickly that Charlie was now interested in being more than just friends.
Tammy was having problems in her relationship with Larry, and that attention that she got from Charles was probably everything she was lacking from her relationship with Larry. That adult male companionship was probably everything she wanted.
Soon, it was Tammy who was reaching out to Charlie.
Tammy Holman would call Charlie Miller, or it would be Charlie Miller calling Tammy, and they conversed back and forth multiple times.
Charlie would help her out with anything that she needed, small projects here and there, and they just sparked up that connection.
It was a connection that excited Tammy on the one hand, but also scared her. As a married woman, she knew her flirtation with Charlie was dangerous, and she was fully confronted with that danger one weekend when Larry was away on a hunting trip.
Charlie finally makes his move on Tammy after all this time. He's been around her, he really likes her, but he has been kind of reserved. So when he finally takes that chance, Tammy didn't know what to do with it.
Tammy told Charlie she wasn't willing to betray her wedding vows. Then, in an effort to save her marriage, she decided to tell Larry about Charlie's visits.
Larry had already had these, concerns about Charlie being so close to his wife and all these phone calls they had, and always being on the phone with him.
Even though Tammy had rebuffed Charlie's physical advances, knowing that his wife had built a secret relationship with his best friend was devastating to Larry. Together, Tammy and Larry both agreed that Charlie had to go. And once he was out of the picture, the couple worked to regain the spark their marriage once had. For a while, things seemed to be getting better.
Larry was trying to work things out with Tammy. He altered his work schedule. He wanted to spend more time with his family and his children.
My dad seemed to be back to his normal self, to where playful, always energetic, always cracking jokes.
But tragedy was lurking just around the corner for the Holman family. November 21st, 2000, at 6 p.m., the security officer at the chemical plant where Larry works receives a phone call.
Security got a call from Tammy Holman wanting them to go check on Larry because he hadn't returned home after work.
Tammy explains that Larry had made plans to go hunting on the wooded property behind the plant that weekend, and he had gone to scout the area after his shift ended.
All of November is kind of a hunting period, so around that time he was always active outside, trying to find the best place to scout, setting up plots outside, stuff like that, anything to attract the deer.
But Tammy tells the security guard that Larry should have been home hours ago.
Tammy had called more than once to say, hey, Larry's not home when he should be.
The security guard tells Tammy he'll check the grounds for any sign of her husband. A half hour later, he spots Larry's car.
It was on a small dirt road through the field, and it was facing like it was coming out from the property. Whenever the security guard got there, he said that he located the car sitting in the field. It was still running.
As the guard approaches the driver's side window, he makes an alarming discovery.
He got up closer to the car, and he saw that Larry was lifeless in the driver's seat. And it appeared that he had a gunshot wound to the back of his head.
Coming up, police break the tragic news to Tammy, while investigators search for clues in her husband's mysterious shooting.
They did have problems with people trespassing on the property and hunting.
The police thought, hey, this is a hunting accident.
After her secret relationship with his best friend had threatened to derail their marriage, Tammy and Larry Holman finally seemed to be back on solid footing. But just 6 weeks after the couple appeared to patch things up, a terrible tragedy befalls the Holman family. On the evening of November 21st, a security guard finds Larry dead inside his car behind the chemical plant where he worked.
It appeared that he had a gunshot wound to his head.
He was dead, slumped over the wheel.
But what exactly had happened? At first, the responding officers wonder if perhaps Larry had committed suicide. But once homicide detectives assess the scene, the evidence suggests that Larry had been shot by a second party.
The car was actually still in drive, and Larry's foot was on the brake still. The back of the right glass on his car was shattered. There was glass in the back seat.
It was one shot, and it went through the window, right through the back headrest, and then in through the back of Larry's head and killed him.
He had a soda between his legs, and he had a twisty straw that he had still in his mouth where he had been chewing on it.
But who would have shot Larry Holman? The date and location of the incident quickly gives rise to a possible theory.
All of November is kind of a hunting period.
Larry's car was tan, and it could have been a hunter in the woods who seen something traveling across the field and just took a shot at it at the darkness.
The police thought, hey, this is a hunting accident. It was probably an accidental deer hunter.
While patrol officers try to locate any hunters who might have been in the area, detectives notify Tammy Holman of her husband's death.
There was a phone call, and I don't know what was said, but when she came into the room telling us what happened, she was totally distraught. She cried the whole night. The detail I was given at the time was that he was killed in a hunting accident. They didn't know what exactly happened. It was just a weird feeling over the house, like nobody really knew how to react. None of it felt real.
While Tammy consoles her children, detectives spend the night searching for additional evidence.
Pieces of the bullet was seized from the headrest, and it was determined that the caliber would have been close to a .243 caliber.
That's a high velocity ammo that deer hunters use.
In the woods, not far from the crime scene, detectives find more clues that seem to confirm the theory that the shooting was nothing more than a tragic hunting accident.
It looked like there was almost a makeshift shooting range, what people were going to and shooting their guns. There were several spent casings, from pistols to rifles to shotguns.
It's looking more and more as though Larry Holman had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But his brother Randy isn't so sure.
I hoped it was an accident, but I felt that there's just no way.
Randy Holman felt from the beginning that there was something not right about this.
Randy tells police that his suspicions stem from a close call he and Larry had experienced just a few weeks earlier.
Randy Holman came forward with some information about a hunting incident up in Mexico, Missouri, whenever him and his brother went up there to do some rifle hunting.
I knew somebody that owned property up there, and they allowed us to hunt on it. But to find the property was very difficult. Even today, I couldn't describe to you how to get to it. It's that remote.
Randy tells police that the hunting trip had gone well, at least at first.
It was the second morning of deer season. We hunted about a half a mile apart. And we would usually hunt all morning, and then I would drive over and pick him up. We would have lunch. As I'm driving to him, I noticed there's an individual walking across the field ahead of me, and there shouldn't have been anybody on the property. And he was in camouflage, kept his head down, never looked at me.
From a distance, Randy couldn't see who it was, but he knew that whoever it was, they shouldn't have been there.
I thought, well, it's somebody from the public land that shouldn't be there, but he was so far off, I didn't try to flag him down or anything. I went ahead and drove over to Larry.
Larry came out of his stand and told him, hey, I'm done for the day. And he goes, how come? He goes, I had a bullet whiz by my head.
He's like, I could hear it as it went past. As we're talking, I said, well, did you see the hunter in the next field over? It was divided by a tree line. He's like, no.
At the time, the brothers thought the bullet that narrowly missed Larry had probably just been a stray shot from a novice hunter. Most likely the same one Randy had seen walking through the fields.
We didn't think at that time it was an attempt on his life or anything, and that was pretty much the end of our discussion.
But in light of his brother's death, Randy is having second thoughts about both the bullet and the mysterious hunter he'd encountered.
Randy is saying this can't be just a coincidence, because we're in Mexico, Missouri, 3 or 4 hours from Festus, and Larry almost gets shot. And Larry does get shot. So I can't believe this is just a hunting accident.
It started looking that this could not be a hunting accident, but it was actually a murder.
Coming up, detectives look deeper into the unidentified hunter spotted by Larry's brother, while the search for a motive points the spotlight at someone supporting Tammy in her time of grief.
It's like, what is going on here? Here's a new guy. Larry hasn't even been buried a week yet.
When Larry Holman was found dead of a gunshot wound inside his car, police initially assumed Larry had been the victim of an unfortunate hunting accident. But thanks to new information from Larry's brother Randy Holman, detectives' assumptions about the case are quickly evolving.
Larry and his brother were hunting a few weeks earlier, and there was a bullet that came past them, and they just couldn't believe that it had been another coincidence.
But who would want to kill a hard-working family man like Larry Holman? Larry's brother offers a possible answer.
I think Charlie Miller did it.
Randy, he was just suspicious of Charlie. He told his brother, and he had warned him time and time again, you need to stay away from this guy.
For one, I didn't trust him, as he just rubbed me the wrong way. How he was over there all the time, and, you know, on certain occasions, he'd sent Tammy flowers. Charlie was infatuated with her enough that he possibly could do it.
And it isn't just Charlie's advances toward Tammy that makes Randy suspicious. He tells investigators that he once caught Charlie following Tammy at a park after Larry had warned Charlie to keep his distance.
And I explained to him, Larry, I don't like Charlie Miller. I don't think his intentions with your wife are appropriate. And he's like, I don't either. But I do trust Tammy.
But the biggest reason why Randy Holman believes Charlie Miller is his brother's killer is something Larry told him during their most recent hunting trip.
When Larry and I had gone hunting, he told me Charlie Miller just went out and bought a new Browning 243.
Police knew that the bullet that killed Larry was a .243 bullet from a hunting rifle.
Even though the former friends were no longer on speaking terms, Larry had learned that Charlie bought the rifle through a mutual friend. But Larry had thought it was an odd purchase, since Charlie wasn't much of an outdoorsman.
Larry says, you know, he doesn't hardly even hunt. He's not good at it. In fact, that very season, Larry gave him 2 of the deer that he harvested. So he went out and bought this high-powered rifle, and Larry just thought that was silly. So if this was a .243 caliber bullet, you need to be questioning Charlie Miller.
Police follow up with Charlie Miller the next day. Charlie denies having anything to do with Larry's death, but he does admit that he and Larry had a falling out over Tammy.
He confirmed that he did own a .243 rifle, and he actually gave it to us so that way we could run ballistics on the gun.
Investigators hope the ballistics report will determine whether or not Charlie Miller's gun was the one used to shoot Larry Holman.
The only thing that the ballistics could show on the bullet was that it was close to the caliber of .243. Any of the rifling and stuff had been distorted by going through the headrest and hitting metal. Nothing was really concrete with the evidence, but it raised suspicion with Charlie Miller.
3 days pass with no new developments in the case, but detectives' interest in Charlie Miller gets a shot in the arm when they catch wind of a rumor regarding Larry Holman's widow, Tammy.
We learned she moved in a new boyfriend shortly after the death.
It was only a week after Larry's death that Tammy had already moved someone into his house. And it was a lot of speculation. Is it Charlie that finally moved in?
To find out, detectives pay a visit to the Holman residence and are surprised by who answers the door.
It wasn't Charlie who actually moved in with her, but another man by the name of Tim Smith.
Tammy Holman and Tim Smith dated in high school at one time, and it was several years back. And after the death of her husband, that relationship seemed to have rekindled pretty quick.
Tammy downplays Tim's presence in her home, telling police the same thing she'd told her son, Josh.
After my dad died, Tim Smith started coming around. My mom was just, hey, he's a friend. He's, you know, like everybody else that has been coming over to the house.
But Josh reveals to police that there was more to his mom and Tim's relationship than she'd let on.
At first, they weren't affectionate towards each other. And it wasn't until he started staying overnight to where I started noticing slight things. They never really kissed each other in front of us, but they started holding hands a little bit more, hugging a little more, and it would make me mad.
And according to Larry's brother Randy, once Tammy and Tim's relationship was revealed, Tim stopped behaving like a house guest and started acting like he owned the place.
My wife and I stopped by Larry's house. Tammy does let us in, and there's Tim Smith sitting in Larry's chair, the chair that he always sat in. It's reclined back, his shoes are off, doesn't say hi, doesn't say anything. And it's like, what is going on here? It was, you know, here's a new guy. Larry hasn't even been buried a week yet.
It was really off-putting and uncomfortable having him around the house. And it really did feel like she was trying to replace my dad pretty quickly.
While not a crime, Tammy's new relationship certainly raises suspicions with detectives toward both Tammy herself and her new lover, Tim Smith.
People grieve in different ways, and we weren't for sure if it was just their way of grieving or if Tammy and Tim could be involved with the murder of her husband.
Coming up, a surprise witness leads investigators to the break they've been looking for.
Tammy Holman's sister came forward with some information, people that she felt that we needed to talk to.
At one point in time, he says, look what she made me do.
Detectives in Festus, Missouri have identified 2 individuals for questioning in the murder of Larry Holman.
Tammy Holman moved in Tim Smith and took over Larry's position as man of the house.
And detectives aren't the only ones suspicious of Tammy and her new boyfriend.
My Uncle Randy had said something to my mom like, who is this guy? Isn't this moving pretty quick?
Larry's brother was concerned about Tammy moving in a new male friend so shortly after the death of her husband. He found it very strange that she wasn't grieving at all.
Investigators run a background check on Tim Smith. Nothing in his past suggests he's capable of murder. And when police bring Tim Smith down to the station, he seems surprised to learn that he's even being questioned.
We talked to him, but he was very cooperative in the investigation.
He had no idea why he was there. He said he loved Tammy and he was not involved in Larry's murder whatsoever. He thought it was an accident just like everyone else. He was nervous when he was in for questioning.
Detectives, though, can find no evidence tying Tim to the crime. And they have no reason to arrest or charge him. But it's not long after their interview with Tim that they receive another visit from Larry's brother Randy and Tammy's sister Kim Duncan. Kim tells police that she doesn't believe Tim Smith or her sister were responsible for Larry's murder. But she does have information about another suspect.
Tammy had a sister that attended the same church and had the same suspicions about the character of Charlie Miller. She did suspect that Charlie was infatuated with Tammy enough that he possibly could do it. And she'd even made the comment to me, I think Charlie Miller did it. And she would not let it go.
In fact, Kim was so convinced that Charlie was the killer that she decided to confront him.
She just kind of figured the only way we can get justice here is if we can find somebody that will get Charlie to confess. And she started then making contact with him and just flat out asking him, did you do it?
While Charlie didn't admit to the murder, he did reveal that he was upset that Tammy was now living with Tim Smith. Then, Charlie said something that caught Kim completely off guard.
He was very upset about everything and didn't understand why Tammy wouldn't talk to him. And at one point in time made the comment about, look what she's made me do.
So Kim goes, well, what did she make you do? and then Charlie just hangs up the phone.
At that time, she actually called me and said, I think he did it. I think I can prove he did it. And I said, well, we got to go to the police.
After speaking with Tammy's sister, police head out in search of Charlie Miller.
Charlie was actually discovered at a local gas station filling up his vehicle. Charlie Miller was taken to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office to be interviewed.
Back at the sheriff's office, detectives confront Charlie with Kim Duncan's statement. Charlie doesn't deny the conversation. And as detectives continue to press him, an emotional Charlie makes a tearful admission.
Charlie basically confessed to killing Larry Holman. I really think this was weighing on his conscience.
As police listen to Charlie's confession, it's easy for them to assume that the reason he killed his former best friend was because of his undying and unrequited affection for Tammy Holman.
When we asked him why he did it, he said that he loved her and he was infatuated by her. He in fact told me that when I see her, I would understand because she's just, so beautiful, and I'd understand why he did what he did.
But Charlie surprises police when he tells them his feelings for Tammy hadn't been one-sided. They'd been mutual.
He said she promised me that she would show me how much she loved me.
Charlie breaks down and tells the police about this affair between he and Tammy. He says that both parties were involved. It was not just him, and they were doing all this behind Larry's back.
Charlie says that Tammy had lied when she told Larry about his advances. While Tammy had told Larry that their kiss had made her want to save her marriage, Charlie claims that in reality, that moment had ignited a full-blown affair that Larry didn't know about.
This whole time, poor Larry, he thought that he was actually working on his marriage, trying to make things better with Tammy, but it seems as though she was really all wrapped up in Charlie.
Charlie claims that his relationship with Tammy had been more than just physical. He'd fallen in love with her.
He was in love with her and loved her, was infatuated by her.
Charlie says that Tammy told him she felt the same way, but there was no way they could be together.
Charlie claims that he wanted Tammy to get a divorce, and she says she wanted to, but she really couldn't do that. She really was worried about what would happen to her kids and losing custody.
Charlie tells detectives that's when Tammy came up with a different solution to their problem.
Charlie Miller had told us Tammy led him to believe that if he got rid of her husband, that he could fulfill the role of being the man of the house.
He claimed that the promise was that they were going to live a life together once Larry was removed.
Charlie claimed they could be together as a family from that point on. Charlie was going to take Larry's place.
Charlie says at that point, he was so blinded by his desire to be with Tammy that he agreed to be a part of her plan. Charlie also admits that his first attempt to kill Larry occurred during the hunting trip Larry and his brother had taken in Mexico, Missouri.
Charlie said that Tammy had given him written directions on how to go to Mexico, Missouri. And he had went up there a couple times to be able to try to also take a shot at Larry.
When that failed, apparently he called her and said, I missed. She was furious, hung up on him, wouldn't speak to him for a few days.
Charlie tells police that he begged Tammy to give him another chance. That chance presented itself when Larry told Tammy about his plans to scout the property behind his work during the final days of deer season.
Larry had told her the day before that, hey, tomorrow night I think I'm going to just go down and sit in the field and watch because I might take Josh with me.
The day it happened, I was supposed to go with him. to the site where he was killed. That's the scary thing about the whole situation. My dad actually told me to stay behind. That was the last time I saw him.
Charlie Miller stated on the day that he shot Larry that he had got into the woods and tried to get a good position so that way he could try to get a good line of sight to Larry whenever he came driving into the field.
He had hid behind a tree, and as Larry's car passed by, that's when he shot him.
Charlie said that after he took the shot, he gathered his stuff and he went back down to the railroad tracks and walked out. And while he was walking out, he called Tammy and told her, set one less plate at the dinner table.
Charlie says Tammy told him they should stay away from each other for a few weeks after the shooting. Not because Tammy didn't want to be with him, she just didn't want to raise suspicion. Trusting Tammy, Charlie did exactly as instructed.
This whole time, Charlie was under the impression that he would move in with Tammy and her kids.
Therefore, Charlie was surprised when he finally did try to reach out to Tammy, but could never get a hold of her.
Once the crime happened, Tammy went radio silent. She changed her phone number, stopped taking his phone calls, and he just didn't know what to do.
Then, roughly a week after Larry Holman's funeral, Charlie learned from a fellow church parishioner that Tammy had taken up with her old high school boyfriend, Tim Smith. A fact which leads Larry's family to believe Charlie's been duped.
I think she got him to do the dirty work and knew that he was in a position where he couldn't tell anybody or he'd go to jail. She could just deny everything.
He said she told me that she would show me how much she loved me. I mean, it was kind of sad, but it's like, oh my God, you idiot.
If she had thought that his complicity would keep him from going to police, she was wrong.
Charlie tearfully explains that it was Tammy's betrayal that led him to confess, along with an extreme sense of guilt over what he'd done to his former best friend. Following his confession, Charlie Miller is arrested.
Charlie Miller was charged with first-degree murder for the death of Larry Holman.
Tammy Holman is also arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
Charlie confessed early evening, and they had her in custody by 10 o'clock that night.
When Tammy is arrested, her new boyfriend, Tim Smith, appears shocked to learn he'd been sleeping with an accused killer.
Tim's living with her up until her arrest.
Despite their earlier suspicions, police are now certain that Tim Smith had nothing to do with the crime. As she's taken into custody, Tammy also maintains her innocence, insisting that Charlie Miller was lying about the murder and their affair.
The whole case came through Charlie. That was the problem. She never implicated herself directly of having anything to do with the actual homicide.
Police and prosecutors disagree. But while they have enough evidence to charge Tammy with murder, will those charges hold up in court?
This case was built on circumstantial evidence and then Charlie's confession. Other than that, there was nothing.
Coming up, Tammy Holman and Charlie Miller stand trial for murder. And an unexpected twist leaves everyone wondering if justice will ever be served.
For her to be convicted would take a unanimous decision by the jury. So we're nervous.
In Festus, Missouri, Tammy Holman and her former lover, Charlie Miller, have been charged with the murder of Tammy's husband, Larry.
Charlie really was the one who broke the case. He implicated Tammy Holman and gave us a lot of details what could tie her into the murder of her husband.
But as she awaits her day in court, Tammy insists that she's innocent.
She denied all of it.
Anytime that we would bring up Larry's name, she would say that she loved him, she couldn't do this to him, and that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. She basically kept trying to push it off on it was just Charlie Miller. He wanted to take Larry's place, and that she didn't have no involvement.
But neither prosecutors nor Larry's family believe her.
I think there was clearly a relationship there. For anybody to say anything other than that is ridiculous. He just knew too many things. He told the police about specific intimate encounters that happened.
Prosecutors soon uncover evidence that casts further doubt on Tammy's story.
Cell phones were just becoming real popular, and there were thousands of phone calls between Charlie and Tammy. All these phone records matched up with timing of what Charlie said he did. Tammy's dissatisfied with her marriage. She doesn't see any way out of it, and the family's all close, and she doesn't want to lose that.
I believe Tammy used Charlie to be able to accomplish what she wanted to get done, and that's to have Larry Holman out of her life.
On January 28, 2003, Tammy Holman's murder trial officially begins. The state's key witness is Charlie Miller. During cross-examination, Tammy's lawyers work hard to discredit Charlie's testimony.
Charlie Miller had a horrible background. He had lied to the police numerous times prior to his confession, and the defense certainly made him look like the lowlife that he was.
My defense was simple, that she was not in a perfect marriage, so unfortunately at times she may have reached out outside of the marriage. She made the mistake of looking at Charlie Miller as sort of a emotional friend.
The defense, though, is adamant that while Tammy had leaned on Charlie for emotional support, she never slept with him.
It was our position that that was just part of his fantasy. And Tammy Holman never had sex with him. It was only in his deranged mind that he believed they were going to have a relationship and live happily ever after. That led him, without any urging from Tammy, to remove her husband.
When the jury breaks for deliberations, it seems as though the defense's argument resonated with some jurors.
They deliberated overnight and then were starting again the next morning. If I recall, at some point, it might have been like 6-6 for guilty, and then at one point it became 9 guilty and 3 not guilty.
You got to remember, for her to be convicted would take a unanimous decision by the jury. So we're nervous.
With a unanimous verdict uncertain, prosecutors approach Tammy with a deal.
That was an Alford plea, which means she's accepting responsibility but not admitting guilt.
That's a plea where you say, I believe there's a substantial likelihood that a jury will convict me based on the evidence the prosecutor is going to present.
Tammy accepts the deal. She pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and is sentenced to 7 years in prison. Charlie Miller, meanwhile, pleads guilty to first-degree murder and is sentenced to 25 years in prison.
At the time, I didn't really understand. I just knew that when she was going to get out of prison, I'd be around 20. And I thought that was a short amount of time.
In 2009, Tammy is released from prison. She moves back to Festus in hopes of re-establishing a relationship with her children, but it hasn't been easy.
I think she did all of this just